Welcome everybody to the War and Peace Baseball Podcast, the Fantasy Baseball Podcast, I should say. I'm here today with Alex Rudy, Ray Estrada. I'm Alex Uy. What's up, guys? You guys having a good day?
Yeah.
Good day for your fantasy teams?
No.
Have there been better days, you could say? Better days ahead?
Oh, certainly. Hopefully. Certainly and hopefully to that question.
How about you, Rudy? Fantasy teams holding up?
Absolutely not. My main team is literally giving me a nervous breakdown every day. I have Chris Bryant, Manny Machado, Cody Bellinger, Gary Sanchez, Freddie Freeman.
Some of those names don't sound frustrating.
Mookie Betts and Zach Greinke. And I would say I'm closer to last place, I think, than I am to first in the standings in our league.
You know, it is, we say it a lot, it is still pretty early on. It's barely June. There's plenty of time to make up ground. And the way to do that is by keeping up with the news every week and getting a jump, and that's what we're doing here. And we'll start with the...
I really don't know if anyone should be listening to my fantasy advice, to be honest, considering my success this year. I'll just admit.
It's a group effort, and we get all the perspectives, and then we see where it goes from there. Not every single thing we say is going to be pure gold. Some of them are pretty good. I like to say we make some good predictions here and there. Let's go ahead and start with one guy who did something that I think 0 people in the entire universe predicted. That would be Scooter Gennett, and 4 homers for a guy that he's not even 6 feet tall, I would say. And, it's 4 homers in a game. It's the 17th time it's been done in MLB history. And he more than doubled his season home run total. And I think the general consensus here is that there's nothing really to see here with Scooter Gennett. Do you guys feel the same way, or do you think he's got a little more pop in the bat going forward?
I don't see much. I mean... the thing is that I don't think this is going to get him any more of like a kind of like a main role on that team, I guess. I mean,
he's wearing Brandon Phillips' number. That's something.
I know. But, I mean, it is a very impressive performance, but I don't think it's I wouldn't say it's a coming out party for Scooter Gennett at this point.
What about, Rudy, you got any insider knowledge on Scooter Gennett? Do you know his real name?
I honestly don't think Scooter... Is it not Scooter?
It's not Scooter. I'm sad to say that his parents did not name him Scooter. I believe it's Ryan Gennett. Let me look it up here. It's easy enough to do. While I do that, you can go ahead and tell us why or why not we should be looking at Scooter Gennett.
I mean, to be honest, like, Scooter Gennett, when he was on the Brewers, was actually a decent fill-in second baseman fantasy option. I was actually pretty surprised when they released him right before the season this year. It's not like he's a complete scrub. I mean, and I'm not saying he's like a legitimately hot pickup or a guy to be relied on for the rest of the year or something, or some secret sleeper that just finally broke out. Like, this is a complete outlier, and he will never do this again in his career, I'm pretty confident to say. But that doesn't mean, like, he's, completely useless. I mean, I don't think he's truly that bad. I mean, there's definitely been cases of more severe breakouts that are just so obvious that this guy is just completely useless in fantasy. I mean, I think if you really are in a really deep league and you're just absolutely screwed for second base, I mean, he'll get you hits some singles, and that's a pretty decent offense. But I mean, he obviously is never gonna do anything like this again, and you should not expect him to hit any. He might just hit 4 more home runs the entire year, but he's still hitting 306 on the year. I mean, that's and that got boosted a lot by last game. I think 20 points, but I mean, he's a 281 career hitter. I mean, he's not. If you're in a league that's that can help you, where you need average points and you're fucked at second base, I mean, you could do worse.
Yeah, and Ryan Joseph Gennett was actually pretty hot earlier on in the season, and obviously that was a couple weeks in April. That means nothing, but then you see a game like this. I mean, he was okay on the Brewers, nothing to marvel at, especially in terms of fantasy, and he's just not going to hit in a decent spot in a team like the Reds. It's just not going to come together for him, I think. I like a lot of other players in the Reds lineup, but I think he is not one of them going forward. But good job to him. We like to throw out these really awesome performances. So yeah, I think that's more than enough said about this essentially worthless second baseman. Let's go ahead and talk about some players that are very valuable, that are not going to be valuable for a little while, that are on the DL. And I think Dallas Keuchel is probably the headliner name here. He was put on the DL with some minor neck injury. This seems like one of those take a start off, and we'll see what's going on with him. But Keuchel is really, this is just an excuse to talk about Keuchel. Really, he's back this season for the most part. Do you have any worries about Keuchel going forward?
I mean, I would just say like last year was kind of worrisome. So I mean, he could always regress to that pitcher that he was like 3 years ago, when he was kind of in the no-name kind of 50-50 shot of becoming an effective pitcher guy. I remember when he was first working his way up, people did talk about him as having some potential, but no one really expected anything like this. So I mean, there's always a shot that he pulls an Arrieta and he kind of just regresses completely to like older expectations. But I think he's fine for the rest of the year, most likely. He seems like he figured out whatever was hurting him last year so much.
Yeah, I don't worry about him too much. I mean, maybe breaking kind of his momentum. I don't know how much momentum works for a pitcher, but missing a start maybe it's discomfort. But I don't see him slowing down all that much. He's looked very solid this year. But yeah, he's it's a blow to miss probably for hopefully just a start if it's not nothing more. But he's fine.
Yeah, and I think other than the fact that he's on the DL, this is probably the perfect time to sell high on Keuchel, because he is outperforming pretty much every indication that he should be this good of a pitcher, and we're treating him like a top 10, top 5 pitcher right now. I don't know if he'll stay in that range, so you could definitely get some really good position player or pitcher for him at this point.
I've never been the biggest fan of him, to be honest, so I would agree with that. I think selling high would be a good move with him. He just never, to me, it just always seems like to me that just seems like if he's ever gonna maintain his production.
Yeah, it's probably the spelling of the name that threw you, right? You don't like those. Well,
those the first 2 years,
wrong names.
The Keuchel years I preferred a lot better than the Keuchel years. Sure.
Really, I think the Keuchel years were much more successful. But anyway,
not for me though.
Not for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and talk about Justin Verlander, another top pitcher here who left his last start with a groin injury, and his MRI came back clean. They're not really sure what they're going to do, though, if they're going to have him, take it easy and miss a start or two. He's going to miss at least one start because of this, but I don't want that to be one of those lingering things, especially for a pitcher who's been around a while, so... Justin Verlander, is he still like a top 10 guy for you?
This year, no. Just too many walks, in my opinion. Not enough quality starts. But surprisingly, I seem to have won the trade I made for him in my fantasy with Farbode, because I gave him Salazar. So somehow, even with Verlander being mediocre, I won that trade. But I would say he's sellable this year. Normally he wouldn't be the guy that you would say give up, but if you can sell high on Verlander just for the name, I say do it. But this year is a little bit concerning, considering he has made the adjustments to his to how he's aged.
Yeah, I would just say I talked to a pitching coach who gave me some inside knowledge that he's learned from watching Verlander, and he said that he's been messing with his mechanics a lot the past 2 years and trying to find a way to extend his career and extend his prime. And a big thing that he's been trying to improve on is dragging his foot more and just having some more consistent mechanics that don't just rely on his natural talent, and that can actually keep him durable. So I would just say I would just watch out for just continued development in that department going forward. If he's gonna continue to be kind of injury riddled and on a slow decline, or kind of keep up that pace from last season where he was surprisingly really effective in a late career renaissance.
Yeah, and if like you say, pitchers at this point, normally have to tinker a little bit to try to find something to make them really effective again. And what he's been doing this season hasn't really been working so far, whatever it is. 33 walks already and 1.46 whip, which is very unlike him. And, just underperforming even for his own standards. I don't think he's done by any means. I don't think I will ever again say that Justin Verlander's definitively done, because I've done that in the past, and that was clearly wrong. He's not at that point.
If I just may add something, this guy I was talking to, his old boss used to, work for Verlander, and he told me that Verlander last year went to a new pitching group, and that they made some good adjustments with his mechanics, but they weren't super beneficial long term, and that they created short term results, but long term, it wasn't going to hold up. And I think that this year's really proving that whatever adjustments he made last year to have that return to form weren't made to last, it seems.
That's pretty interesting. What did he say? Anything in particular, like some part of his mechanics?
They're kind of like part of this guy's livelihood, and so I don't want to get too in depth on air, if that makes sense.
No, but, that's fine. I'm just wondering if it's more about like
I said earlier,
hitters being able to adjust,
the dragging of the foot, the launch angle, and a lot of the arm slot, and a lot of things based around him having to learn how to actually pitch like a Mike Leake, or someone who has, I guess Mike Leake was a top draft pick, but a guy who had to really work their way into the major leagues and develop and learn proper training and form and science, and how to properly keep your arm in shape and healthy and your whole body, and making really sure that your rotational mechanics are proper and as strong as possible. Whereas for his first half of his first prime years and all until his 30 into his 30s, he can kind of he was able to get on natural talent and good, if not incredible, mechanics. And now his body's starting to wear down, and you have to find a way to make up for that, and he has to accept new ways and information to adjust that a guy like him never had to do that before, because they're always so good, and that can be difficult to know who to trust and know what to do, what to change and understand. And I would say, based on what I've heard, you just have to you see a guy like Price too, who is starting to kind of wear down and suffer, and when these guys reach this point, they really have to double down and invest themselves into really buying into the stuff that the guys who didn't have their talent and ability had to really embrace from the start to catch up. Or you end up like a Jared Weaver, who just never trained properly and never really watched his arm. He never did the right balance of throwing programs and regimens, and statistical measurements and health that you need to really last in the modern day pitching world. And that's the crossroads I think Verlander's at. Sorry if I didn't want to rant too much about it, but I thought it was an interesting take from a guy who's kind of more of an expert than I would say any of us are on pitching specifically.
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean, this is not stuff you'll find on just some random internet article. This is like some really nice breakdown stuff we got going. Let's talk about a couple more injuries though. The rest of these are going to be position players, and actually the rest of these are all ankle injuries. So that could mean a number of things. Justin Bour is the first one here, who obviously was scorching hot, was probably robbed of Player of the Month in the NL last month by Charlie Blackmon. But Bour really having a breakout season. It looks like it's going to be the first time, if this injury is not too bad, that he'll reach the 30-homer, 100 RBI plateau. And he definitely looks like the kind of guy who could get there, but this year looks like the year for sure. I think all of these ankle injuries that I'm about to mention are not too severe, with the exception of Adrian Beltre, which is the next guy I wanted to mention, who is also dealing with, as we talked about, just, durability problems and working through these nagging injuries that, are really hard to come back from at an older age. So do you guys have anything to comment on with Beltre or Bour in particular here?
I'm just gonna say, as far as Beltre is concerned, I mean, I'm kind of sad because I really wanted him to have just another good, relatively healthy year, but the fact that he's been plagued by injuries so far is disappointing because he's still got plenty left in the tank baseball wise, but I'm hoping that this is not indicative of a injury laden last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times with injuries, it's important to think fantasy-wise, okay, who's next in line? Because sometimes they provide some value. A lot of times they don't, but sometimes they do. And in this case, I think they recalled Jurickson Profar, who I still think could be relevant if he gets a regular role. He's definitely got speed. He's got contact ability and a little bit of pop. So I don't know if he's gonna find a role finally on a decently crowded but kind of underwhelming Rangers lineup. And you got Jared Hoying, who's been playing for a little while, and he seems to be holding down a job pretty well. And then of course you have 3 true outcomes Joey Gallo, who is hitting homers, and that's about it. He's drawn some walks and striking out a lot. So those are not necessarily really big names, but something to keep an eye on for sure. The last guy that I wanted to mention with another ankle injury was Gene Segura, who just came back off the DL and quickly re-injured his ankle, and quickly also signed a contract extension with the Mariners. I think 5 years, $70 million for the second baseman. I guess he's a shortstop now.
Yeah,
good for him. I think Segura is one of those players who's much better in fantasy than in real life. But I think I like what Segura's done to change his game since he's been with the the Brewers and the Angels and all that. He was really good with the Diamondbacks, obviously, and I think he's maintained most of what he's been able to do in Arizona, more so than I thought, anyway.
So wait, are you saying that why is he not as good in real life as he is in fantasy?
It's mostly driven by stolen bases being extremely valuable in fantasy baseball for the most part.
Is he not like a good fielder? I mean, he gives pretty good offensive production.
He's a good fielder. I don't think, especially in today's landscape, and considering he flip-flopped positions again this year, I'm not going to go ahead and say that he's a top defensive shortstop right away, because there's some, comparatively much better ones. I mean, he's a good enough athlete for sure, but just the fact that he's kind of been flip-flopping positions, it's more the offensive numbers that really came around for him that, were driving a lot of his value, just scoring a lot of runs and stealing a lot of bases and hitting for a little bit more power than we're used to. He's really good in real life. I'm just saying, mostly just his speed that drives that value. Speed's a rare thing in today's game. I don't know if you noticed. I do like Segura a lot going forward. I think you have to hang on to him even if you don't have room on your DL, just hang on to him. Any other notes on injuries? And did I miss anything? I never ask you guys if you guys have anything more to add here. I'm definitely sure I forget things.
I think the Manny Machado injury is worth mentioning.
Well, yeah, I mean, did he go on the DL? Because I think he was.
No,
his X-rays were negative.
Day with a wrist injury, which is always poor for hitters, I would say. And it's gonna linger for. It definitely won't just go away. And he's having a terrible offensive season. So, as good as his fielding is, I mean, for a guy who is supposed to be a perennial MVP candidate in his prime years, he's been really bad at the plate. And I think it's worth mentioning as a fantasy. I think he's in the top 5 of the most disappointing fantasy players this year, in my opinion. I might be being a little bit overreactionary because I'm an owner of him who's invested 4 years of keepers into pretty on and off fantasy results from him. But I mean, to me, I think really we're getting to a point in his career where, I mean, is he going to live up to his hype? I don't think he'll ever be a guy like Hosmer or Hayward, where they truly they were good, but just never strung it together. I mean, he already has had enough incredible production that I think he's past that hump. And he's obviously not like a guy like Buxton or like Profar, who I think just will never even come close. But, I mean, this guy was supposed to be the next A-Rod, and I know I've probably mentioned before, but, I mean, this is a pretty worrying season before we even get to the injury, though I will admit his batting average balls in play is absurdly unlucky this year. Like, it's unsustainably bad, so that should give him some hope going forward.
Yeah, nobody's worrying about Manny Machado. Nobody's really worrying. People are upset, of course. I think he's definitely, so far, a disappointing player in fantasy. That's a first-round pick that's given you essentially nothing so far. But
he's negative WAR offensively, according to Fangraphs. It's pretty
Jesus. But you know what? This is the same guy that everybody in the world knows can just go off and hit, 15 homers in a month and be right back in the mix for an MVP discussion if his team's playing well. Like this, that's how quickly a guy like this can turn it around. So yeah, I have to throw that in there as well. So let's keep it rolling here. We'll talk about the Dodgers rotation a little bit. Kenta Maeda is the odd man out this time. This is a bit surprising, I think. Ray, you're the Dodger fan here. Are you surprised that Maeda is the one that's going to be taken out of the rotation for the time being?
A little bit. He hasn't been bad as of late, really. Hasn't since that 8 1/3 outing that he had. His last 3 starts haven't eclipsed 5 innings, and the last 2 going for 4. But nothing too terrible, except maybe a little bit high, a little bit too many walks especially for the amount of innings that he's gone. But I mean, that's the nature of this Dodgers rotation right now. If everybody feels good, then there's 6 quality guys who could pitch, and one guy's got to go to the bullpen. And we saw Ryu do that. He got his 4-inning save early in the year, and I guess it's Maeda's turn right now. Sure, somebody's going to go on the 10-day DL sometime soon with some little thing, maybe Rich Hill and his blister.
Alex
tomorrow,
Wood is on the DL right now too.
He's scheduled to start this weekend.
Yeah, I know. He's in the minor DL stint rotation right now.
Yeah, but I mean, he comes back and nobody is going to the DL. Like, it's not like it's not that kind of swap that bumping Maeda to the bullpen. But that's just the nature of this Dodgers rotation right now.
You're not worried that he's gonna stay in the bullpen, right? He should be back on the.
No. Somebody's either gonna go in the 10-day deal again, or he's gonna get a spot start somewhere. Yeah, it's kind of a revolving door with that 6-man.
All right, yeah, I think that's a good thing to address, because I'm sure people are panicking about Maeda. Because that headline is, he's out of the rotation. What? Why? But I think it's not too worrisome.
I have him on my team. I'm not going to give up, because I mean, if let's say he throws 3 innings out of the bullpen for a few games, and he has some decent numbers, I can ride that until he starts again and then puts up decent numbers. So
yeah, maybe even bench him. Maybe even bench him just while he's in the bullpen.
That could be. I don't have any.
He's not going to get saves. He's not going to get wins. He's
pitcher bench. Yeah, no, I don't have any pitcher's bench. But the pitching market in our league, at least, is not very attractive. So
yeah,
if you can somehow swing a trade for a quality pitcher, but I'd say he's still one of the better options out there. He's gonna start again soon enough. Don't panic. And if you absolutely have to play him, he's not going to be that bad in the bullpen.
All right. I like it. So we'll go ahead and talk about something that, this is talk about revolving door. It's like this every year. And that would be catcher options. Every year we see new guys that are, leading the charge with the short burst of offensive production. And, it's a really, really weak hitting position. But there's a few guys that I want to talk about with some intriguing bats. The first of which would be Alex Avila. That is throwing it back right there. What year is it? What year was he an All-Star? Do you remember that?
I don't.
Let me look that up here. But Alex Avila's been having a really nice season. I think he's at 8 homers now, and that's really good for a catcher. And I think he seems healthy right now, which is something that a guy like him normally struggles with. He's hitting the ball out of the park to all fields, it seems, which is always a nice sign. And he was an All-Star in 2011, and 12th in MVP voting. So he was best at his position, Silver Slugger at that position in 2011. Just a short 6 years ago. So I think there's definitely some value to be extracted here. As a catcher, I'd probably rather own him than even probably Matt Wieters or especially guys like Tyler Flowers or Jason Castro. But yeah, I think he's got a little bit left in the tank to provide for you there. And the next guy I'll throw out here is Chris Iannetta, who, if Farboda were here, he'd be smashing his head into a wall right now. Chris Iannetta just came off a 7 RBI game today against the Padres. Ooh. And
that's not hard to do.
Yeah, but he's also sitting up there with 8 homers and some pretty good offensive production, a really good ballpark for him. Do you guys want to hear something? You guys want to answer a question really quick that I got here for you?
Sure.
So, I mentioned Alex Avila and Chris Iannetta. What do these two players, Guillermo Heredia, Dexter Fowler, and Robbie Grossman, have in common? None of these players are particularly superstar caliber players, but what's one thing that Alex Avila, Chris Iannetta, Robbie Grossman, Guillermo Heredia, Dexter Fowler have in common?
Huh.
I don't care about any of them.
Well, I think that's a little bit rude. I think you should apologize to these players.
I'm just teasing. I honestly have no idea. They're all so different players. I honestly just could not.
So what they all have in common is that they all hit second in their respective lineups today. And, that's often considered to be the prime lineup position for your best hitter, or at least in many new metrics it is, that I've seen. And, that is essentially like that top of the lineup position where you're looking for a lot of production. And these are some less than impressive players hitting up near the top of the lineup. But I
feel like... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think, I picked these particular players for a reason because I think there's something to like with each case. It's not just, who are these no-name players, or who are these, freaking catchers and no-power hitters hitting 2-hole in the lineup. There is some interesting things to extract from each of these players, and I can tell you about that if you like. What were you gonna say, Rudy?
I was just gonna say some stuff regarding how I think managers are finally catching up with how to be a little bit more intricate and diverse and setting up their lineups and not just using the same archetype of players in each spot over and over again. And I thought that's but that's kind of maybe a talk to discuss for a different day, along with the role of closer changing and maybe the role of rotations even changing in the future. So we could save that for a non-fantasy focused segment.
Yeah, and that is one of the
all those
the big
players
deals.
are fairly different. All those players are not the same type of player or hitter. I mean, maybe very vaguely they throw up just similar stats, but I mean, they play different positions, and I would say their makeups are pretty different. So it just shows you that managers are starting to finally realize that you just don't need to put your Derek Jeter on your team in the 2-hole automatically, and then just leave it for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and I think not all these players are hitting second every single day either. Lineup day-to-day variance is a bigger thing now. But I think it's important to keep an eye on who's hitting at the top of the lineup because that means more production. And, one really fascinating player, at least in my mind, is Robbie Grossman, who is, you've probably never heard of him. He's playing for the Twins. He DHs much of the time, plays some corner outfield. But this is a guy who is sporting an 840 OPS right now, if you'll believe that much. Only hitting 261, but he's one of those guys that really has a strong on-base percentage ability. and he's, when he hits it, he's hitting it well, and this is enough for a 2-hole hitter. You want a guy that will, get on base a lot, but also, have the ability to hit some balls out of the park and into gaps. These multi-dimensional players. I think he's a good example of that. Doesn't have to be a superstar. Guillermo Heredia too, obviously a guy with great speed for the Mariners. Not really any power, but for the most part, an on-base oriented player, and I think that is definitely sticking out there. Dexter Fowler's a notorious on-base first kind of player with a little bit of pop. So yeah, and I think it's smart for managers too to throw their hot hands like Alex Avila and Chris Iannetta up near the top where they're going to get more at bats. Give them the at bats now while they're seeing the ball well, and it seems to be working for them for the most part. So yeah, that was my little break in the discussion there to ask you a little question. I do have another little game for you, and maybe I'll save that for after this next segment here. But yeah, we talked about a few catcher options. I did want to throw out a couple more names. One of which is Tom Murphy, who is the Rockies catcher with an insane amount of hype to start the season. Did not start the season with the team due to injury, but now he's back and he could do some interesting things in a very hitter-friendly park. So I would have my eye on him. I think a lot of people do already. And Mike Zunino, who is really having a good time at the major leagues, which is something I can't say he normally does. He's had a couple multi-homer games in the last week, and one of those would be a walk-off home run just a couple nights ago. And I think there's always been some hope for Mike Zunino, one of the top prospects at his position, and especially at a time where catcher's as weak as ever. Go ahead and place your bets with Mike Zunino. There's nothing that what's the worst that could happen with Mike Zunino again, really? So, any more catchers that you guys want to throw out there? Give a little shout out to.
Buster Posey.
I think he is, he's a very underrated player at his position. He's definitely not considered the best catcher in all of baseball by most people, or is he? I don't know.
I just feel like we're in an era where catchers are just really, really weak offensively. I don't know, maybe when you're not living in it, it's easier to look back and say, oh, this name and this name was so good, but ever since Joe Mauer declined, it feels like there's only been one top catcher offensively in the game for a really long. I guess Yadier Molina was up there for a couple of years, but he wasn't really he was just above average for his position. And I think it's from a fantasy perspective, I feel like we're in an era where most teams just kind of tank that position, just kind of filler it. No one really puts much value or worth into it. I think it's kind of like everyone plays with a handicap to a degree if you don't have Posey or if you didn't have Gary Sanchez for 1 month to end last year.
Yeah, and I think that's the sad truth about it. So you gotta make sure you keep working in those hot players at those positions. Another guy did pop into my head actually that I wanted to talk about, and that would be Wilson Ramos, who is actually making some rehab assignments right now. After he had that torn ACL last year, it seemed like he wasn't going to play for a while. We knew he was coming back sometime in the middle of the season, but he's already on the comeback trail, so he could be back with the club in a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks to a month. So if you're willing to give up a couple of weeks of catcher production for one of the best in the game offensively, go ahead and pick him up if he's dropped. I can't imagine anybody that stashed him from the beginning of the season is still stashing him, considering how many injuries there have been. So I'd imagine he's out there in a lot of leagues. So yeah, that was another guy I wanted to throw out there. By the way, Joe Mauer, he's hitting 289 right now with it's like a 770 OPS. So he's not completely just in the garbage like he was in the past couple of years.
But he's not a catcher anymore, that's the thing.
Oh, okay. So I guess he doesn't count anymore. I know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to defend Joe Mauer's honor just a little bit. He's still working hard to produce for that team. The first place Twins, that is. I should state them correctly. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on to our next little segment here. Here to stay or keep away. This is one that we do pretty often. I got a few names for you here. One of them is Edison Volquez, who, everybody knows the no-hitter is, that was about a week ago now. And in his last start today, he followed it up with a strong 8 scoreless inning performance against the Pirates. Or it might have been 1 run. But strong performance nonetheless from Edison Volquez. I can't imagine that you guys really change your opinions here much. But what do you think about Edison Volquez going forward? Here to stay or keep away?
I mean, he can definitely get you some good outings. I wouldn't necessarily talk you out of owning him. I mean, I could see a situation where you can sell high on him, especially right now. But just be ready for a roller coaster ride. Essentially, don't expect him to be the model of consistency throughout the year. Take what he can give you, especially such as a no hitter, what he did today, and sell high if you can.
Yeah,
sell high on Edison Volquez.
I don't think you can.
Right now you can.
I don't think you can. I don't think anybody wants him particularly. I think Volquez is the definition of matchups homework, because if you can catch him in a game, well, the Diamondbacks game, that was a little bit fluky. That's against a really good lineup. But in a Pirates game where, the Pirates are really not running out very good lineups right now, that is, the perfect time to use a guy like Volquez. And especially now that he's in the National League, use him whenever they're playing, a quadruple A team, so to speak, because you should be using everybody that plays these teams. And Volquez definitely knows how to extend those outings to make them look really impressive in the stat books, and get those 8-9 inning outings. He can definitely do it and get some strikeouts against bad hitters. So I think there's something to be said for that. Next guy that I want to talk about is CC Sabathia.
Wait.
Who
okay.
is that? Were you thinking of a different Sabathia? Or
No, I was just gonna say I want to say when you said stay away, keep away from Edison Volquez, I just want to throw in that you should just find the longest stick in the world, and then find another one of those longest sticks, and then just poke them from the longest distance. You really just want to be as far away. Just go to the other side of the world. Go to the Pluto from Edison Volquez. Do not touch him with the longest pole in the world. I totally butchered that, but what I'm trying to say is, whatever you do, I think if anyone should get anything from this podcast tonight is just take Edison Volquez, throw him in the dumpster, and light him on fire.
Jesus.
Don't touch it.
Wow, that's harsh.
All right, then. And I think it's telling that you said you called this segment "Stay Away or Keep Away" with Edison Volquez. So, I guess those are your two options with him in your mind.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you also I recommend treading carefully with using phrases like "longest sticks" going forward. Let's talk about CC Sabathia though, who is, I think, now, what is it now, 6 quality starts in a row with really good numbers. I must add, Sabathia has been impressive, and he goes on stretches like this all the time, and then can go and give up 8 earned runs in any given outing. I don't know what to do with him. I don't want to say you can't own him, but if he keeps turning out outings like this, I think it's worth it at this point. I think he's showing us, hey, I am definitely pitching many more productive outings than I am poor outings at this point in my career, even now. So, what do you think about Sabathia here?
To me, a couple things just really stand out. One is that, his BABIP and his FIP, while they are a little bit lucky, they're nothing too absurd. And a 280 BABIP is honestly, for a pitcher, is just totally, it's pretty reasonable. And his FIP is about a half run higher than his ERA, and his left on base percentage is a tad high. But to be honest, I don't think anything here is particularly unlucky. I mean, just lucky. Sorry, overly lucky. Sorry. I just think for fantasy, I think you should really be, really selecting your spot starts with him. And I read an interesting statistic that his last 6 starts after Yankees lost or something, he is he's been incredible every time. So I guess if you own him, only start him after the Yankees lose, which seems to be every time Tanaka pitches. So that works perfectly that they go 1-2 in the order. So whenever Tanaka pitches poorly, start Sabathia seems to be the rule this year. But just in the advanced metrics, I don't think anything really stands out like absurdly lucky, except that it just seems like he's pitching better. Like he's just getting more deception on his pitches, I guess, and just getting some weaker success. But it's nothing really stands out as saying like he just should be turned to just absolute crap like he has been the past year and a half before this right away, I would say.
Yeah, and I'll also throw out there that that's 5 straight quality starts from him, and that's 5 straight wins from him too. That matters. He's thrown good games, and I think the strikeouts are really looking pretty promising too. Since then, he has amassed. Oh, I gotta do math now. Jesus. He's amassed 31 strikeouts in his last 5 outings. That's more than we thought with Sabathia. I think not really a strikeout guy anymore, but Sabathia is gonna keep throwing quality starts for a really good team, and that equals wins, which in fantasy baseball do matter still, despite their pointlessness in real life. So yeah, that's my take on Sabathia. I think you got to give him a chance. I think at this point, and like Rudy said, do your homework with Sabathia especially. A couple position players to mention here. This one is one that kind of, I chuckle to myself whenever I say it. Justin Smoke is having the most insane season that I think, anyone could have even projected for. I can't imagine that anybody thought his best case scenario season was even close to this, what he's doing right now. But he's doing it. You think he's got an MLB best 17 home runs now? Or tied for best? It's up there. That's 17 homers for the guy. Jesus Christ. And he's doing it all. He's looking really sharp, making really solid contact. There's nothing really fluky looking about this at first glance. So tell me, here to stay or keep away?
Do you want to go first, Ray, or should I?
If you have something ready,
I was just say like he's always been a really talented player. If a bit of a dick I've heard here and there. So like if he was just finally been humbled, and he was a top prospect on the Rangers, and when the Mariners traded Cliff Lee to the Rangers to get him, and back as one of the biggest pieces, and he really toiled away there when Safeco was a horrendous hitter's park, and every single young player on that team seemed to just fail and sputter out miserably. Rip Dustin Ackley, rip Michael Saunders, rip Danny Holton. Let's see if Taijuan Walker can string. He seems to be doing better in Arizona too from that era. And like it's all been there. I think the one thing that really stands out is that his ISO power is 306, which is just unbelievably higher than anything his career has demonstrated. And his strikeout percentage is 17.9, which is also just way below his career percentages. But he's not walking at any higher rate. So that just really points that he's just, at least to me, he's just really fucking hot right now. And he's a talented player. He's a big dude. So, I mean, it makes sense that he can go on a streak in his prime years like this where he's hot. But, I mean, the 26.2%, and not just trying to throw out stats to throw them out, but one last one, 26.2% home run to fly ball rate isn't unsustainable, but he's only come close to matching that once. That was 2 years ago with the Blue Jays, and he was not as an effective overall hitter that year at all either. I think he's going to regress, but that doesn't mean I would sell high on him, honestly. I don't think he's going to keep this up. He just hasn't proven in his career that he's ever been a consistent enough player for me to suddenly believe that this is the year where he turns from, I don't know, insert mediocre power hitting first baseman to all-star caliber first baseman.
I don't know if I can off the top of my head. even the numbers that you gave there, like the underlying stats, the peripheral numbers, they're not even that crazy considering the numbers he's actually putting up. Like, you say his home run to fly ball ratio is like a bit higher than normal. Like, with this kind of power production, you'd expect it to be like, oh, this is just through the roof. There's 0% chance he can sustain this. Or, the guy has a 950 OPS right now.
It's definitely not 0%. I mean, it's definitely not 0%. It's just last year he was so bad. He was
a meme. He was a meme.
I mean, it's hard to believe that it's sustainable, but I would say it's baseball. It is the one sport where nothing is predictable, even though there's the most stats to predict things with. And his 2015 year with the Blue Jays was very promising and looked like he was on the right track to find things step forward. So you know what? Maybe he finally has figured it out, just like Yonder Alonso has.
Yeah, his BABIP's only 282, and he's hitting 291.
Yeah, the
BABIP
is the contact seems reasonable. The hits and the on base and stuff definitely seems there. But the power, to me, I don't think it's going to keep up this pace. But I think he'll be fine as a fantasy option for the rest of the year. But I would still trade high because I don't think the power is going to keep up this pace.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm seeing from Smoke is, I think, an adjustment. I mean, he's batting 291, and his career high average in one season was 238 in 2013 with Seattle.
Jeez, that's so bad.
I mean, yeah, he batted 217 last year. I mean, I'm seeing. I hope if it is an adjustment, like I said, all the numbers indicate there's nothing too fluky about his average and his on base and his slugging and stuff. And maybe better contact, more contact is leading to more sustainable power. I mean, he's surpassed last year's home runs and RBIs already. He's 3 off of his career high home runs of 20 from that same year, 2013, and he's going to put up career numbers this year if he sustains this even for a month longer. But I think I'm sure he's a really good athlete with his size and such and his build. I'd be really encouraged by it, and I'm going to take a closer look at Justin Smoke to see if there really is something that he's changed that has made him more consistent.
Yeah, and we do have one more player here that I want to talk about, and we kind of been dragging on a little long, so we'll kind of speed it up a little bit. But Whit Merrifield of the Kansas City Royals, I don't know if you've noticed what he's been doing lately, but he has warranted a promotion to the leadoff spot where sub 500 OPS Alcides Escobar has finally been demoted from. But Whit Merrifield was, I think he was in the Billy Burns trade? No, that was a different trade. He was traded for somebody with the A's. I think he's from the A's, I think is the point that I'm trying to make. And, I think the numbers that he's putting up this year are not too outlandish. He's hitting 288.
Are you sure he's from the A's?
I'm not sure, but I think that's what I remember. Is that?
All right.
Let me look.
He's a Royals draft pick.
He's always been on the Royals.
Oh, he was?
Yes,
Yeah, he was a 9th round Royals draft pick in 2010.
Well, what shows? I'm thinking of somebody else completely.
He played for South Carolina. That's where I kind of remember. He was probably on, or no, he got drafted in 2010. So that first year is when South Carolina went back to back. I think that's where I remember hearing that name before.
No, I knew he was here last year. There's somebody else, some other outfielder that was whatever. The point is that he is
Nice.
Yeah, I'll take my losses. I'll take that one. He's hitting with an OPS over 800 right now. He's gonna hit for average. He's hitting for a tiny bit of power, of course, every time. And now that he's in the leadoff spot, I like the run scored potential, even though the Royals aren't that good of a lineup. But Mike Moustakas is driving in plenty of runs, so who's to say that Whit Merrifield can't turn that Royals offense around a little bit anyway? Do you like him at all? Is he here to stay, or you got to keep away?
To me, nothing really stands out. It's obvious that he's just going to suddenly decline. I think he's just a poor man's DJ LeMahieu light. If that's something that can help your fantasy team, he should be fine, but he's not going to win you the league or anything. But nothing really seems to show that he should just suddenly become useless. Honestly, Scooter Gennett is a pretty comparable player to him, in my opinion. I know we talked about him earlier. I think he might be a little bit better going forward, but he's a high average, high contact. He's decent on base. Really good on base second baseman. I wouldn't say there's much more to him in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the most intriguing
Some
part
speed.
is he's on pace to hit like 15 homers and steal around 15 bases. So a double-digit homer steal guy that hits for average is valuable anywhere, and that's probably the biggest difference between him and Jeanette. So I think that's what sets him apart. Also, obviously, he's hitting leadoff now. That matters. So yeah, that's all we got for this segment here. I did have another little game that you guys want to do this real quick? I've got a little segment for you. I'm gonna give you a list of names here, and I want you to tell me if these names are actual current Major League players or if they're names that are just made up names. You ready?
Sure.
Test your deep knowledge of today's rosters. Okay, so this first one, I'm not sure how hard this one will be. Wilmer Defoe.
Real?
I love the way in which you answered that. Yeah, he's a real player. He hit second for the Nationals today. Believe it or not. Yeah, it is pretty hard to believe. All right, here's the next one. Adam Engel.
How's it spelled?
Let's see.
I say it's real.
Engel.
I'm gonna go for real too.
Yeah, I mean, okay, that's not fair. You like forced me to say the spelling. Like, I'm not gonna come up with fake spelling for a lot of names, am I? He is an active. He's an active
fair.
player, and he hit leadoff for the White Sox today. He's their center fielder. Hooray! The White Sox center field has been a mess this season. All right, now it'll get interesting here. Let's see. Juan Graterol.
What?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. What?
Juan Gretzer.
I'm gonna go fake.
He's a real player, and I might have butchered the pronunciation, which might have helped my case there. But
it definitely made a huge difference.
Well, would Juan Graterol is the only other thing I can like.
What team is he on?
He was the starting catcher for the Angels today.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So, you tell me, but he's a real guy. I did get you on one of them. That was the whole point of this whole thing. Yeah, like it's last name spelled Graterol. You tell me how that's pronounced.
He's Venezuelan, so
this is bio say anything?
Gratero. No, nothing on the name of Gratero though.
All right. Well, he's real and he's playing. He played today. In fact, all the players that are real are playing today. All right. The next one is Austin Slater.
Fake.
He is real. He is a real.
Are you
man.
just gonna name off real guys? Are you bad?
He's a real guy, and he went deep today. He hit his first career home run for the Giants. So I'll give him a little shout out there.
Do you have any fake names on whatever list you may be picking from?
I told you I did, so you're gonna have to guess. All right. Next one I got is Rio Ruiz.
Fake.
Ray, what do you think?
I go real.
Yeah, he's real. He's started at third base for the Braves today.
I see the trend you're on.
And I think he's been playing a little bit there since Adonis Garcia's injured. All right, I got one more for here. Ted Lyons.
Fake.
Real.
Rudy does win this one. He's not a made up name, but he's not an active player. He's actually a Hall of Fame.
Oh.
He's actually in the Baseball Hall of Fame, believe it or not. Ted Lyons pitched for the White Sox.
It sounded like an old-timey
from
name.
1923 to 1940. It's like 46. With
It sounded like an
service
old-timey
time
name
there.
to me.
It did. It sounded that far off. I don't know. I tried to find one that wasn't like too explicitly like old timey. I don't know, but I got you with that one though, so it was good enough.
I mean, he's real.
I said active major league player though.
You said real or fake?
Well, yeah, like real active player, or is it just a made up like not
you didn't make it up.
I didn't, but I did make it up for the purposes of this game. So I'm not going to argue, the rule book about this game. The point is, I got you to call some very, very real baseball players fake in this segment, so that was fun. Yeah, so I think we're about ready.
I'm surprised I got any right, to be honest.
I mean, you did. The first one you very tentatively got right, but yeah, I want to try to throw in little things like this in the future. I think that'd be fun. Good thing Farboda wasn't here, because
I appreciate it.
He would have just cheated and Googled everybody right away. So yeah, thanks for being good sports with that one. And I think we're just about ready to wrap it up. We did plan to discuss a couple matchups, but I think it's about that time to wrap it up. So I'll put them in the description still, a couple of the bigger weekend matchups. I know that's something we normally talk about, but I think we did cover quite a few players that should be helpful for the weekend lineups and whatnot. So good luck with that. And I would like to remind you that we would very much like to answer your questions on this podcast. If you have any questions, the best way to ask us is on Twitter at WPB_podcast. Tweet us your questions, or you can comment them on whatever you're listening on. And you could also email us at warandpeacebaseball@gmail.com. So many options, so many things to choose from. I also recommend you check out our website. Link for that is down below. And yeah, that is all for today. So thanks for joining us. As always,